Weapons Prohibition Organization, as we agreed with the United Nations, to design a road which would make sure that this issue is resolved quickly, professionally, as soon as practical.
And joining me now live is Jason Johnson, political science professor at Hiram College in Ohio and senior politics editor for the website politic365.com. You have too long of a title. Also, Eli Lake, senior national security correspondent for the Daily Beast and Newsweek. Thank you both for joining us. Eli, I'd like to start with you here because Andrea Mitchell reported at the end of her hour it appears that talks may be wrapping up and there won't be a Saturday session. What does that mean? Is that a sign that things are progressing or at a stalemate?
It's really hard to see because we don't know the substance for the particular deal, and there are going to be a lot of questions about the details. And then the other big wild card is, what is Bashar Assad going to demand? He's an independent actor here as well. He said that he would not disarm unless threats of force were off the table, and that seems to be something that, at least for now, Obama is not willing to do.
So we apparently know that they had the option of a working session on Saturday, but the conversation at least has been pivoted to the UN General Assembly and perhaps what they're calling a Geneva II conference. The option of Saturday was available, as it seems.
Well, it's true. I think it's probably a mistake to read too much into the particular schedule of meetings. I mean, I think that you're going to see Kerry and Lavrov in constant contact for the next days and weeks, it appears. And, you know, you have to also see the proposal, have it taken back to the Kremlin, and then the U.S. has to look at it, and there's a lot of steps between you know, here and there.
Yeah, but I have to follow up with that really quickly in that it was Secretary Kerry who pointed out that time is of the essence from the signing of the agreement and the removal, or at least the process in removing these chemical weapons. He seemed to be annoyed at the notion of even over a month for this, and that's why I'm kind of focused in on that timeline more.
Well, the timeline's important from the perspective of the U.S. concerns that, you know, Syria or others could use this as sort of stalling mechanisms and have a situation like you saw in Iraq in the 1990s. But in terms of the actual deal, I mean, we don't know who's going to be responsible for having the ultimate custody of those weapons. What are the declarations that Syria is making? Do they match what our intelligence community believes that Syria has? How will you be able to verify that things have been cleaned up? Where does it necessarily go? All of those are very important questions. And also, what is the payoff here from the perspective of the United States? We just saw stories that the CIA was finally going to send weapons to the non-Al-Qaeda rebels. Will that still be a program that's underway? If you see this kind of deal? Probably not.
All right, and Professor Johnson, let me bring you in this. We are so quick, and the media, I think, is to blame for it as well, scoring winners and losers here. Set that aside. Let's set motivation into play, and there's been a lot of talk, at least more so, on the benefits of getting this deal settled for Vladimir Putin, despite that op-ed in the New York Times that there are things that are clear incentives here for Putin to get this done as well in an expedited fashion.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that was missed all along is, why did Vladimir Putin even get involved? Because the vast majority of the weapon systems that they have in Syria were bought from Russia. If we had done a pinprick bombing of Syria, we would have ended up killing Russian consultants, Russian military technicians, and Russian engineers. So Putin had a motivation to get this peace deal on the table because he didn't want his own citizens harmed as much as Syrians. So that's where his real motivation comes in this case.
And the motivation, at least, to get these talks off and to get a more positive direction. Andrea Mitchell pointed out that the Kerry-Lavrov talks got off to a rough start yesterday when Kerry bluntly rejected the Syrian pledge to begin a standard process by turning over information as opposed to weapons. And I think it's interesting now, 24 hours or less than that, we're seeing language like constructive being used by Secretary Kerry.
Well, that's because he wants this to get done, and he wants to get it done quickly. Let's not lie to ourselves here. The Syrians are not going to give up all their best weapons. They're shifting stuff around right now. Kerry knows that. Everybody knows that. So he knows that the more we can get done faster, the sooner we can get in there and try and find these weapons, because we know Assad is going to hide some of them.
And at this point, Professor Johnson, do you believe that the negotiations are in good faith? Because you got another report that elite forces within Syria just today were moving weapons. And we know, and I think people should be reminded, this is all still happening under the cloud of a civil war. There was bombing and shelling again today.
Well, I think it's in good faith, but again, it's trying to, like, get an alcoholic relative to give up the liquor. I mean, they're going to give you the stuff in the front chest, but they've still got things hidden in a garage. And that's what you've seen Assad doing right now. He's still going to try and prosecute this war. He's still going to try and hide his weapons. But every day that gas is not used is a victory for diplomacy and a victory for the Obama administration.
And just quickly before we're out of time, Eli, let me bring you back in. We know that the Sunday morning programs, we often hear from both sides, including the critics of the president, who still say that he did not handle this in the right way. What do you expect from some of our lawmakers, particularly on the wording and rhetoric on Sunday shows leading up to more talks with Syria and Russia?
For 2 weeks, President Obama and his top cabinet made the case that the August 21st incident was a moral obscenity, and in order to restore deterrence so that others did not do this sort of thing, military force was necessary. The deal that is being negotiated right now would allow Assad most likely to stay in power and probably require the United States to stay out of the civil war. How then is that squared with the case that the president was making and the importance of upholding an international norm? I would imagine both Democrats and Republicans are asking that question, then we'll be making that point, I think, in the coming days.
All right. Thank you both for your time and your insight. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Well, the U.S. is